So good evening. So it's good to be, I gotta speak in this, that's better. Good evening, it's good to be back at the Orient. You know, we are so privileged to be here that we're gonna do this every week. So, you know, today's the 1st of February, 2022. We will be back on the 8th of February and continue on. So, I think, you know, rather than sort of delve into some subjects from last time, I'm going to try all new material tonight. And I felt like it'd be important to look at the atmosphere growing up, because it sort of reminds me of sort of things from today, which I'll get into. So I grew up, as you know, in Tuckahoe, the back of the shirt there, and it was mainly Italian American. So people, you know, talk like this, and you know, tough guys kind of thing. And for you, Z generation people. So I know that there's some people here who were born in 1995 and after. It was a time where, you know, there were actually these things called phone books, where if you wanted to call someone, you'd actually open up a book and look up their number. And also, when I was growing up in Tuckahoe, the TVs, they actually had a back to them. So like now, like there's a TV just over here to my right. You could probably carry around like even like a 70-inch, you know, TV now, like under one arm. Back then, it'd probably take about 3 people to carry a 70-inch TV, because the back part of it would be enormous. I mean, it'd be like carrying like an elephant, pretty much. So in Tuckahoe, there was this family called the Roccos, and you know, they talk like this, and they were on the football team, and they were very cool. So in Tuckahoe, the Rocco brothers were so cool that after they graduated from high school, they did not move out of their mother's basement, because even looking for work was not considered cool. But what they did do is they would spend a lot of time cleaning their cars. So they had cars that, I don't know how the family would even afford these cars. They were cars like, you know, Monte Carlos, like cars that just would cost, you know, at the time like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, which is a crazy amount of money to buy a car, especially when you're, you know, 18 years old and not working. But they would literally clean their cars with toothpicks. I mean, that's how detail-oriented. So they would spend their time at Westchester Health and Fitness, where I was a member, or Westchester Health and Fitness. And I try to be humble about this, but I got a spot from all 3 Roccos. So all 3 Roccos actually spotted me at one point, and that was considered a big deal back then. But one quick story about Tuckahoe is, this is very weird. When I was 17 years old, I was working out, and I saw the back of someone. I thought it was just some guy, and it was actually a woman bodybuilder named Sue, and she came up to me, and I'd never seen like a woman bodybuilder before. She's like this really, you know, big bodybuilder, and so she introduced herself, which also is kind of weird, because usually, you know, the girls wouldn't be introducing themselves to the guys. And she said, "I'm Sue," and I said, "Oh, I'm a Christian." And she asked me, her second question was, besides, you know, what's your name? was, how much do you weigh? So at the time, I thought that was very bizarre. So I like made up a weight, and then she was like, I got you by 20 pounds. Like for her, that was like a good thing that she weighed more than me or something. And then her third question was, how did you get here? And I told her, I took my bike, and she said, we have to go biking sometime. So she actually asked me out on a date. I never went on the date. But that was that definitely was entertaining for my friends to hear that this bodybuilder had asked me out on a date and asked me how much I weighed as her second question. But moving on to, I guess, life in Freo, especially as Omicron seems to be creeping in, which is pretty horrific. But I have gotten to hang out with some friends and do game nights and different things, which is great because who knows, soon it might be harder to even do comedy shows at bars and hotels and stuff. And we were doing trivia. It was a trivia night, and I guess one of the questions was the highest grossing film in history, and I think the answer was Avatar. And I thought that was interesting because it reminded me when I actually saw Avatar in the theater. I was living in San Francisco, and my car got broken into, and so sort of I connect that movie with what happens in San Francisco when your car gets broken into. Basically, nothing happens because it's so common that when I went to the police and told them, they just did absolutely nothing. So, but what made it more interesting was that my house keys were stolen from the car. So then they actually did something because they thought that I could be burglarized. So it was crazy because at the time I actually was living in an apartment that was probably illegal because it was actually just connected to another apartment. So in other words, my little one bedroom, quote unquote apartment had a door where if you opened the door, it actually went into another random person's apartment. It turns out that a number of women lived there and actually went into their bathroom. So I never opened up this door. But the connection with this crazy evening was that in the middle of the night, because I saw Avatar, it was a late showing, so I got out after midnight. Imagine 4 big police officers, because they wanted to see if I guess this guy that broke into my car was in my apartment. In the middle of the night, they just barge into my apartment. And I mean, these guys, my apartment is so tiny that I wondered if they could even fit inside my apartment. And I imagine them just, also going into this women's apartment that was connected and just completely horrifying these sleeping women. But so anyway, that's what I think of when I hear the Avatar movie. But connecting the Z generation again, I was thinking about what Z people watch, and I've had the opportunity to talk to some of them, and some of them have talked about having seen the entire Lost series. Now, I started watching the first season, and I have to say I have no idea how. First of all, some of them had the time to watch that, so that's what I'm really curious to figure out. Is first of all the time, and second of all, I mean, it's not even real. It's not even like Survivor, where you wonder what's going to happen and all this. It's not real life, and these Z people had told me that they saw it. They said that they were disappointed with the ending. So they watched, we're talking I don't know, 500 hours, does that seem right? And like, why would you watch something for 500 hours that, you know, is not a real life story? It's just like, I mean, I think it'd be more interesting if you threw in the producers on some island and then did a survival thing with them, you know, a survivor thing. But, and then it turns out that the ending was like really disappointing. So anyway, to me that was a little bit crazy. But I have actually more recently watched the Office, the American Office, and I actually would recommend that, especially like in these times when you can't always, you know, soon I don't think we're going to always be able to go to the movie theaters in WA. Because especially this character Jan, I thought was really funny, like the boss of Michael Scott. So that would be much more entertaining than I think watching The Office. But I did get to watch actually the season opener of Survivor, which was just actually last night. And I do have a question for all the Aussies, because I found out that they actually let a woman, I can't think of her name, I think it might be Sandy, or it's a woman who's like a celebrity because she won 2 of the American Survivors. So she's American and she came in with her daughter because it's like a family survivor thing. Well, the thing that I'm just scratching my head about is that she enters the show on a helicopter, so after all the Aussie people are like waiting there. And she's won millions of dollars, you know, winning Survivor. And, you know, here the prize is $500,000. And it's like all of the Aussies are like happy to see her. Like I would be like, no, I don't want you on the show because you've already won millions of dollars. Like, you know, so that is definitely a question that I would have for, especially the people who watch Survivor, which I found are some, I guess, you know, millennials, but definitely a lot of Z generation people. But anyway, going back to the sort of what's happening in WA, I got to spend some time in City Beach, which is really a cool place because you're right on the water. It's not really built up and all that. And I have to confess that I have a problem because ever since I've been like 8 years old, I think that just because I'm a guy, that I should be able to beat any girl in any sport, which is ridiculous because the reality is I think there are thousands of women that could beat me in every single sport, but I've had this stupid thing in my head, which I think a lot of guys aren't as like thick-headed as I am. They actually are more you know, realistic about things. So connecting it with City Beach is that there would be like a girl jogging, and I'm on my scooter, which, you know, right now doesn't have electricity, and it's like this girl probably wins running races, and yet I would always have to beat her, like all the time. It reminds me of like a friend that I had named Steve. This guy, like, I mean, first of all, he was a physical specimen. I mean, the guy, he was like, you know, Hugh Jackman, like he was like the size of Hugh Jackman, but Hugh Jackman on steroids. Like he was a really fit, like strong guy. He was in the military. He used to like jump off tuna boats and like he climbed. I mean, he's done some crazy things. Like he actually in Mexico climbed a volcano mountain that was active. So he's like hiding. You talk about being hiding behind a rock, and like he had to turn around because he started to get burned. I mean, it's just like who would climb an active volcano? But this guy would. He in college he witnessed like a random person's bike being stolen from his dorm room, and he chased down the robber. Like the guy that stole the bike, he literally ran across campus and led the police to this guy. I mean, he's that kind of guy. He just does crazy things. Well, this guy, I mean, again, connecting it with the problem, because this, I probably have a much bigger problem thinking that I can beat every girl in any sport than he does, but he does have some of that, because here's a guy that, like, he never cycles in his life, except he'll be like on his way to like some ROTC or military thing, you know, all dressed up, and, you know, on Boulder Creek Path right in Boulder. And like some girl, they have, you know, professional athletes in Boulder, so some girl will be like, you know, on a bike, hardcore, you know, racing really fast. And Steve, he could not ever have a girl beat him in something, so he would be all dressed up, like completely going all out for as long as he needed to be on this path, just so the girl would beat him. I mean, ridiculous. So I don't think I corrupted Steve. I think he had the problem before I met him, but I guess he and I are maybe one of the few people in the world that have that problem. But I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and then we'll reconvene in probably about 10. So see you soon.